Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to help you cut through the noise and focus on the really crucial insights you need for your daily UPSC prep. Today, we're diving into the significant current affairs from June 27th, 2025. This is part one. Now, you might find some of these topics familiar, which is great. A good chance for a quick revision. Others will offer some fresh, essential perspectives. Our mission, like always, is to bring you precise, relevant, and hopefully engaging info without overwhelming you.
Exactly. And we've got a really fascinating mix today. Everything from space exploration, governance, even a look deep into Earth's ancient past. What's really interesting, I think, is seeing how these seemingly separate topics often connect, building that bigger picture for your understanding.
All right, let's unpack this then, starting with India's growing global footprint. We'll touch on diplomacy first and then launch into space. So first up, just a quick but important diplomatic note. The Prime Minister recently visited Cyprus. Worth mentioning because it's actually the first visit like that in 23 years. Signals a renewed focus there. And now for something, well, truly out of this world, the launch of the AXIOM-4 mission, heading to the International Space Station, the ISS. What makes this really significant for India is Shubhanshu Shukla. He'll be our second national astronaut in space since, 1984. Just a quick reminder, Rakesh Sharma was the first Indian in space back then on the Soviet Union, Soyuz spacecraft. So why is this mission, Axiom-4, such a potential game changer for India?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, obviously there's national pride, but the Axiom-4 mission itself is a fantastic example of global collaboration. It's led by Axiom Space, that Texas-based startup. But they're working closely with SpaceX and NASA. It's actually NASA's fourth all-private astronaut mission to the ISS. And the crew itself shows that international cooperation. You've got members from the US, India, Poland, and Hungary. They're scheduled for about 14 days up there, doing intensive microgravity research, tech demos, and outreach too. For India, Shubhanshu Shukla being there, it's more than just symbolic.
Right. So beyond just, having another Indian astronaut, what are the tangible benefits? How does this feed into the bigger picture, especially with, say, Gaganyaan coming up?
Precisely. The core benefit, really, is that deep dive into biological processes in microgravity. These kinds of experiments are absolutely vital. They help us understand how the human body adapts to long-duration space missions. That directly informs our own programs, like Gaganyaan. And beyond human physiology, the science involved drives advancements in things like materials science, propulsion, other space tech. It's practical knowledge building. And of course, it's a huge inspiration, right, for the next generation of scientists and engineers in India. It strengthens our presence in space and shows India's contributing globally.
Okay. And just for those revising their notes, maybe a quick refresher on the ISS itself. What's its current status?
Sure. The ISS, as you probably know, it's that habitable artificial satellite in low Earth orbit. A massive international effort. ESA, US, Japan, Canada, Russia are key partners. And it's currently set to operate as a working lab until at least 2030. It really is a symbol of sustained global scientific partnership.
Okay, so from the cutting edge of space, let's bring our focus back down to Earth, specifically its deep history and some current environmental challenges. We've got exciting news. The Salkhan Fossil Park has been added to the UNESCO tentative list for World Heritage Sites. Just quickly, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, it's recognized globally for its outstanding universal value. It can be cultural, natural, or mixed sites under the World Heritage Convention. This one, Salkhan, is officially Sambhadra Fossils Park. It's in Uttar Pradesh, Sambhadra district in the Kaimur Range. That's part of the Vindhya Range, right next to the Kaimur Wildlife Sanctuary. What makes it so special?
What makes Salkhan truly fascinating are its stromatolites. You can sort of picture them as these ancient, layered rock formations. They were built by incredibly tiny life forms, cyanobacteria, or blue-green algae. These microbes basically pumped oxygen into Earth's early atmosphere billions of years ago. And these fossils, they record that great oxidation event, a really pivotal moment when Earth started becoming breathable for complex life. The age is just astounding, around 1.4 billion years old. It's one of the oldest, best-preserved sites like this globally, and the different shapes tell us about ancient water depth, sediment, even wave activity. Crucially, putting it on the tentative list helps fill a big gap in the World Heritage fossil record for the Precambrian era that's like 85% of Earth's history, which is really underrepresented.
Amazing. So we've just looked back billions of years. But let's shift focus now to the present and some immediate environmental concerns. We're seeing news about cloudbursts triggering flash floods, like those really tough situations in Himachal Pradesh's Kulu district recently. Now, the IMD defines a cloudburst as precipitation exceeding 100 millimeters per hour over a pretty small area, maybe 20, 30 square kilometers. Basically, a huge amount of rain very quickly. How do these actually happen?
That's a key question, yeah. They seem sudden, but there's a clear mechanism, usually orographic lift. That's where moist air gets forced up over a barrier, like a mountain. As that warm, moist air rises, it expands, cools, and releases moisture. But with a cloudburst, large volumes of this moist air keep rising and sort of accumulate moisture without releasing it bit by bit. Then suddenly, it all comes down at once in a violent downpour. Sometimes it can also happen when warm air mixes quickly with cooler air, causing sudden condensation.
Right. And this obviously ties into the broader strategies for disaster risk reduction, which many of you will be familiar with from your prep. How are these specific risks being tackled in national planning?
Absolutely. The National Disaster Management Plan from 2019 outlines a framework. It stresses understanding the risk, so compiling data, doing landslide hazard zonation. Investing in DRR is vital things like maintaining natural drainage systems so water can flow away. And crucially, capacity building. Making sure local bodies are prepared, promoting insurance to soften the financial blow. It's a multi-pronged approach.
Okay, so from destructive forces like cloudbursts, let's pivot to something more proactive, maybe even innovative, in fighting climate change. Enhanced rock weathering, or ERW. The idea is spreading crushed rock on farmland to pull carbon out of the air, basically speeding up a natural process. Sounds almost too simple.
Okay.
How does it work? What rocks are we talking about?
It's actually quite clever using natural geology. The core idea is grinding specific rocks into fine dust. This massively increases their surface area. That larger surface area lets them react much faster with CO2, either in the air or dissolved in water. Two common rocks look really promising. Olivine, it weathers quickly. If you spread it on beaches or in the ocean, it locks away carbon and can help reduce ocean acidity. A double win. The other is basalt. On farmland, basalt does capture CO2, but it also adds useful minerals to the soil, potentially boosting crop yields. So, good for climate and agriculture.
Interesting. And this brings us to the bigger picture of global climate efforts, particularly the Paris Agreement discussions. We saw some movement on climate finance recently. India, along with other developing countries, pushed to reopen talks on developed nations' obligations under Article 9.1. What was the main issue there?
Yeah, it really comes down to a big gap, between what's pledged and what's actually needed. Article 9.1 is pretty clear. Developed countries shall provide financial resources to help developing countries with mitigation and adaptation. But at the recent COP29 meeting in Baku, developed nations agreed to mobilize at least $300 billion a year from 2035. Now, while that sounds like a lot, it's still well short of the estimated $1.3 trillion a year minimum that developing countries are assessed to need. So, progress, yes, but the gap remains significant.
And bringing it back home, India has its own framework for corporate climate action, Business Responsibility and Sustainability Reporting, BRSR. This is now mandatory for the top 1,000 listed companies in India. It actually started back in 2012 with SEBI as just business responsibility reporting. Why is BRSR seen as so important?
Well, BRSR is potentially a game changer because it's not just about transparency, though that's important. It's about trying to shift the corporate culture. By making these ESG disclosures mandatory for the biggest companies, it forces sustainability conversations right up to the boardroom level. Companies have to think beyond just quarterly profits, considering their long-term environmental and social impact. It's pushing towards more responsible business practices.
All right, shifting gears now. Let's look at how India governs itself and adopts new tech, and also touch on a major historical event. Today marks 50 years since a really defining moment in India's constitutional history. The Union Cabinet passed a resolution observing 50 years since the proclamation of the national emergency. That was declared June 25, 1975, under Article 352, citing threats from internal disturbance. Remember, we'd had national emergencies before, during the wars with China in 62 and Pakistan in 71. What are the constitutional provisions for these emergencies? It's vital to understand.
Absolutely vital. The Constitution outlines three types. National emergency under Article 352, President's Rule, Article 356, and financial emergency, Article 360. A national emergency is proclaimed by the president if they believe India's security is threatened by war, external aggression, or armed rebellion. Now, that phrase, armed rebellion, is crucial. It was specifically added by the 44th Constitutional Amendment Act, 1978, replacing the vaguer term internal disturbance to prevent potential misuse. For it to stick, the proclamation needs approval from both houses of Parliament within 1 month. And then it continues subject to parliamentary approval every 6 months, needing a special majority and another safeguard from the 44th CAA.
And the impact on fundamental rights during an emergency, that's always a key area for UPSC aspirants.
Indeed. During a national emergency, Article 358 allows the state to suspend the protections under Article 19, freedom of speech, assembly, etc. And Article 359 allows the state to suspend the enforcement of other fundamental rights in Part 3. But critically, not Article 20 and 21. The right against self-incrimination and the right to life and personal liberty cannot be suspended. That protection was also added by the 44th CAA.
Right. And that leads us to the significant constitutional changes made during the 1975 emergency. How did the government try to consolidate power then?
Well, this is where you see that dynamic tension. The 38th Amendment, for instance, tried to bar courts from even questioning the president's decision to declare an emergency. The 39th went further, excluding the election of the PM and the Speaker from judicial review. And the 42nd Amendment was probably the most far-reaching. It increased central powers, extended the term of the Lok Sabha and state assemblies, and tried to bar judicial review of constitutional amendments themselves. It was a major shift.
And this is fascinating, most of those changes didn't last, did they?
Exactly. Most of those extensive amendments were reversed by the 44th CAA, which was enacted after the emergency ended. It really highlights the resilience and dynamic nature of our Constitution and the importance of those safeguards that were later put in place.
So, having just talked about the emergency, a moment that challenged our governance framework, it's maybe a good time to look at mechanisms designed for good governance today. The Lok Sabha Speaker recently highlighted the vital role of parliamentary committees. He called them supportive and corrective instruments offering constructive guidance. What exactly are these committees?
Yeah, they're essentially panels of MPs set up to scrutinize what the government does and hold the executive accountable. You could think of them as Parliament's detailed workhorses. Broadly, there are two types. Standing committees, these are permanent, regular ones, like the financial committees or the 24 departmentally related standing committees looking at specific ministries. And then you have ad hoc committees, created for a specific job, like examining a particular bill, and they dissolve once the task is done. Select and joint committees on bills fall into this category.
They sound incredibly important for effective governance, but we often hear about challenges they face. Are there specific issues that hinder them sometimes?
That's a fair point. Their significance is huge accountability, better governance through researched recommendations, improving legislative efficiency because they work year-round, building cross-party consensus. But yes, there are issues. Short tenures for members, delays in setting them up, the fact they meet behind closed doors raises questions sometimes. MP attendance can be low. Average was only 47% in the 17th Lok Sabha until mid-2023. And maybe most worrying, fewer bills are being sent to them. Only 16% in the 17th Lok Sabha, compared to 60% back in the 14th. Plus, the Venkatakalia Commission back in 2000 pointed out things like lack of resources, not enough staff, no expert advisors, all impacting effectiveness.
Okay, we've covered some big topics. Let's bring it down to something quite practical now, something that might affect you directly, passports. The Ministry of External Affairs has rolled out the e-passport and Passport Seva program 2.0. What's the tech behind this new e-passport?
So it's basically about merging digital security with the physical document. The e-passport has the usual paper booklet, but also an embedded RFID chip and antenna. This chip securely stores your personal details and biometric info. The security behind it uses what's called public key infrastructure, or PKI. The big benefits: much harder to forge or use fraudulently. And it makes verifying the passport's authenticity much quicker and more reliable at border controls.
And speaking of smart upgrades, India's infrastructure is getting one too. The Dwarka Expressway is now the first in India with an AI-powered Advanced Traffic Management System, or ATMS. IHMCL is implementing it. What exactly does an ATMS do? What are the key parts?
Think of ATMS as the smart brain for the expressway. It's a whole set of technologies aimed at making traffic flow better, safer, more reliable. Key components work together. You've got traffic monitoring cameras, video incident detection, VITE-EASE, acting like eyes to spot problems fast. Then there's vehicle-actuated speed displays, VASD to warn drivers. It's all linked by a strong communication network, usually fiber optic, feeding data into a central command and control center. It allows for much more proactive traffic management.
Okay, let's widen the lens now to global economics and some health breakthroughs. First, on the international security front, ATO members made a notable commitment recently. They've agreed to boost defense spending significantly from 2% up to 5% of GDP by 2035, and they reaffirmed their collective defense commitment. What's the context here? Remind us about NATO.
Right. This increased spending pledge clearly reflects the changing geopolitical landscape, a renewed focus on strengthening collective defense. As for NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, it was formed back in 1949 with the North Atlantic Treaty. The main goal then was deterring Soviet expansion after WWII. Headquarters are in Brussels. It's a political and military alliance, now 32 countries from Europe and North America. Sweden's the newest member. The core principle is Article 5, collective defense. An attack on one member is considered an attack on all. That's the bedrock.
Okay, from geopolitics to the global economy, oil prices always a key indicator. Brent crude prices fell recently. Reasons cited were reduced Middle East tensions and fewer worries about supply disruptions. Why is Brent crude such a critical benchmark?
Yeah, Brent crude is absolutely central. It's a type of light, sweet oil from the North Sea, used as the main global benchmark since the 1960s, really. Light means low density, easier to refine into petrol and things. Sweet means low sulfur, so less polluting, easier to process. It's the main benchmark for oil traded in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. The U.S. market tends to use West Texas Intermediate, WTI, as its benchmark for similar light oil. Brent's price is very sensitive to global events.
Now let's turn to public health, a development that's generated a lot of buzz globally, and now it's in India. The Danish company Novo Nordisk has launched its weight loss drug, Wegovy, here. It's semaglutide, sold as Wegovy, given as a once-a-week injection. How do these new weight loss drugs actually work?
It's quite fascinating. They work by mimicking the body's natural signals. Semaglutide, the drug in Wegovy, acts like an appetite suppressant. It does this by imitating a hormone called GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1. This hormone is normally released in your gut after you eat, and it makes you feel fuller. So the drug tricks your brain into thinking you're full, reducing appetite. Some other drugs, like Mounjaro, which is tirzepatide, mimic GLP-1, and another hormone called GIP, potentially giving an even stronger effect on fullness and blood sugar. It's a new approach.
And finally, a significant step for food security and agricultural research in India. The cabinet has approved setting up the International Potato Centers, or CIPs, South Asia Regional Center in Agra, Uttar Pradesh. What's the global role of the CIP?
CIP plays a really crucial global role. It was founded way back in 1971. Its focus is specifically on potato, sweet potato, and Andean roots and tubers. They do research in over 20 countries across Africa, Asia, Latin America. Their main goal is improving these root and tuber crop systems. They use partnerships and innovation to tackle big challenges like climate change, poor nutrition, and poverty. Their main HQ is in Lima, Peru, so this agri-center is a major step for their work in South Asia.
Wow, what a deep dive we've had today. We've really covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From India's space ambitions and discovering ancient fossils right through to constitutional law deep dives and global health innovations. Each topic offers a unique perspective, hopefully helping you build that well-rounded view needed for UPSC prep. We really hope these insights spark some further curiosity, help you connect those dots as you build your understanding. Remember, every piece of knowledge, even small ones, adds up. And maybe something to think about as you reflect on all this. How is this rapid pace of change, scientific, tech, geopolitical, constantly reshaping governance and society? What new challenges, what opportunities might this convergence bring just in the next few years?
Precisely. And always remember, it's not just about knowing what happened, but digging into why it matters, how it connects. That's key. Keep asking questions, keep connecting.
Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. If you found it valuable, please do take a moment to like and subscribe. That way you won't miss out on future deep dives we're tailoring just for you. We'll be back very soon with more essential insights.